Flight boss, bitch. You know, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Aries Moon. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And this video right here is about the black sheeps of each elemental family. Now, we have 4 elemental families. Well, technically, we have 8, but I'm going to save the cusp for a later video, and I am. But this video right here is about the remaining, a.k.a. fire, water, earth, air. Now, within these elemental family groups, you're going to have a sign that experience being a black sheep or being outcasted in some way, shape, or form. Now, here's the thing, right? Being a black sheep or being outcasted is not always in the indoctrinated way of learning about it, where it has to be back to supported by people or associations or families or friends and groups. You could be a black sheep towards a place or a thing also. Whatever you're giving your energy to at the moment, you could become a black sheep or experience being outcasted from. So that's the power of the P. Power of the pussy, but the power of the P. You see what I'm saying? Which is, and the power of the P, which is the power in 3 also. But yeah, people, places, and possessions. You could be a black sheep or outcasted from those things. Now, the power of the 3, that brings us into this also. And I want y'all to watch my video, Dimensional Numerology, so you can understand what I'm talking about when I start to talk about numbers also. Because numbers are not something that you just add with and subtract with and multiply with or divide with. Numbers are frequency vibrations that you could create a mentality and it could ride that line of event. So for the most part, here's the thing. There's a yin and yang to everything. So let's break down what is being a black sheep and what is being outcasted. Now, these are one and the same thing, the same difference, 2 of the same thing. See how that contradiction sounds like it's getting ready to make sense? For the most part, here's the thing, because we're tapping into the esoteric realm right now, where numerology and the frequencies is derived from. Now, understanding motherfucking being an outcast or being a black sheep, there's a yin and yang to everything, but everything comes from a true space. Now, the true space of being an outcast or being a black sheep is just due to the fact of separation. It's coming from the energy that's manifested from concepts of separation. So that's the truest space from it. But us being spirits, your spirit is your space. But we get lost in the light so much, then we don't understand the true essence of something. So for the most part, here's what I'm talking about, right? We get lost into the yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine of what we manifest out of our space as a spirit. So when something gets created out of a space, right, you get the feminine and the masculine polar shifts of it, right, of that one thing, right? So now we're able to see both sides of one thing, right? So that becomes the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang of it. The yin would be the feminine, the yang would be the masculine of it. You see what I'm saying? The yang, the masculine, will be the thought, the idea, you know what I'm saying? The yin, the feminine, will be the feeling and emotion. And then those has a polar shift, you know what I'm saying? The feeling and emotion. The feeling will be the masculine version of the yin realm. The emotion will be the feminine version of the yin realm. You see what I'm saying? The thinking, the idea will be the feminine version of the yang realm. The thought will be pushing it out, would be the masculine version of the yang realm. So you see how everything got a yin and yang to it? But getting into the space, right? It's just a space. Then once a light gets created out of that space, you got a feminine version of it and a masculine version of it. That creates the polar shift. That creates the yin and yang. Now, here's the thing. When you're talking about being a black sheep, right? This is the feminine side of it. You know what I'm saying? Because we got that black energy, dark energy. So being a black sheep means that you've been going through something internally that differs from others, right? Then once we talk about being outcasted, this is the masculine version of it because it's an external representation of an energy. See what I'm saying? Masculine represents external, feminine represents internal. Same as yin, feminine, jin, that's sin, that's internal. Yang, external, pushing out, man, masculine, that's external. So once we talk about being outcasted, to be outcasted, that means the surroundings is indifferent to you. So they're pushing you out and outcasting you in some way, shape, or form, right? And you're being outdated from their energy. Whether that's a person, place, or thing, you're being outcasted from that energy externally. So regardless of how you feel inside, you may not be aware of why you're being outcasted. So the external realm, and this can involve people, is indifferent to you at the moment. So that becomes outcasted. Now, when we talk about black sheep is when you feel different from an internal place. So other people may not know how you necessarily feel, but internally you feel differently. So it may start to manifest into your actions, but slowly but surely you end up becoming a black sheep. You end up doing different things and having different feelings and ideas, aka different masculine and feminine energies than your surroundings. But you develop these different feelings from inside of you. It wasn't something that you experienced externally first, and then like, damn, why people pushing me away? It was something that you felt different, and then you felt like you need to escape. So now you're starting to see that black sheep represents the feminine side, which is the yin, and outcast represents the external side, which is the yang. Now that we got being a black sheep and being outcasted out the way, let's get into each sign, and because I'm gonna tell you why each sign become the black sheep or become outcasted within their elemental family. So like I said, 4 elemental families, aka fire, water, earth, and air. And I'm going to break down why they are seen as the black sheep or being outcasted within their circumstances. And you can even break this down within family and friends. You see what I'm saying? So 9 times out of 10, when you sit back and look at your sun, moon, or ascendant, and look at the signs that I'm getting ready to say, you're going to be able to sit back and be like, damn, this is why I was outcasted in this scenario. Damn, this is why I'm seen as the black sheep of my family or friends. Now, the 4 signs that's going to experience this, when it comes to fire, it's going to be Aries. When it comes to earth signs, it's going to be Virgos. When it comes to water signs, it's going to be Scorpios. And when it comes to air signs, it's going to be Aquariuses. These are the 4 signs out of these elemental groups that experience being a black sheep or being outcasted within their family or friends or their circumstances or situations in some way, shape, or form. Now, we're going to break down why. Now, let me separate it so you can understand the difference between if it's your sun, moon, or ascendant. Because your sun, moon, or ascendant, this is your trinity. So these are the 3 most important. But when you start to digest information on the internet of trying to understand, okay, I'm this sign, but what's the difference if it's my sun, moon, or ascendant? Here's the thing. Now, if it's your sun sign, you're going to experience being a black sheep or being outcasted based upon your actions and how people view you and how you see things. If it's your moon, you're going to experience being a black sheep or being outcasted based upon what you have manifested in your life, what makes you feel comfortable, the things that make you feel uncomfortable, and how you react and respond to scenarios within your life and how you react and respond to people. This is how people are going to outcast you, or how you're going to start to perceive things as being a black sheep. If it's the moon, black sheep, you're going to feel emotionally different. If you're being outcasted, other people's emotions and how they emotionally view how you react and respond to things, and the things that your manifestations as far as your scenarios and the things that you have in your life and the things that you are around, people are going to look at that and cast you out in some way, shape, or form. And now when we talk about the ascendant, this is your personality, personal issues and affairs. So you're gonna experience being a black sheep or being outcasted based upon your personal issues, your personal interests, the things that you're interested by, your personal insecurities, your personal affairs, the personal people, places, and things you always constantly around, or just straight up your personality. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be what you get black sheeped about or outcasted about. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you separate it between the sun, moon, and an ascendant. If it's your sun, you're going to be outcasted or be the black sheep based upon your actions. If it's your moon, you're going to be the black sheep or outcasted based upon the way you react to things and your emotional standpoint and your comfortability and what you have manifested in your life. And if it's your ascendant, you're going to be outcasted or be the black sheep based upon your personality, personal interests, personal issues, and personal insecurities and personal affairs. Now, let's get back into the actual signs. Now, and why. So fire is Aries, earth is Virgo, air is Aquarius, and motherfucking water is Scorpios. So let's start off with Scorpios. So Scorpios, this is why you become black sheep, or this is why you become outcasted. Now, for the most part, this is going to be based upon the house that rules your sign, because the constellation, the house that gave birth, the space in the sky that gave birth to the star constellation of Scorpio, is the 8th house. So we got to correlate the 8th house, Mars, Pluto, and a modality, and an element, which is fixed water. So this what makes you the black sheep or outcasted from the other water signs, and then just in your life in general, dealing with all scenarios and all elements and things of that nature. Now, for the most part, we have to look at fixed water. So this would separate you from the other 2 water signs, but in a detriment way, because fixed water, when you talk about water being fixed, you're going to have to go get a cup of water and go put it in the freezer. Now, once you put it in the freezer and it reaches a certain Fahrenheit, it's going to motherfucking freeze. Now, that's stable water. So when we talk about water down here, water is not what y'all looking at, right? So in the esoteric realm, water is basically emotions. Water is basically feelings, vibrations. Water is basically influences. So for the most part, when you start to talk about frozen water down here, esoterically, you could kind of pull out the influence that a Scorpio will be a person that's stuck in certain emotions. So this doesn't necessarily have to always be negative. It could be exciting. It could be exciting emotions and feelings, or it could be grudges and things of that nature, or shit that they can't get over. So for the most part, this what holds as a container. Because anytime you got cold, hold, sold, fold, load, all this is in the same frequency vibration of the yin realm, and something creating a container so something else can hold. So for the most part, when we start to talk about water being held into one position and being stable, this is water not being able to flow fluidly. So when you look at Cancer, Cancer is the wave. It pushes in. When you look at Pisces, this is the water that can be balanced if it's not waved. You know what I'm saying? That it can all settle and it can all be relatable as a collective conscious. So if you got frozen water, or you got water that's stuck in one place to the point that it could develop bacteria and all kind of other shit to settle on it to the point it turn into toxic water and shit like that, then therefore this could kind of let you know and get into the understanding of a Scorpio getting ready to manifest situations in their life where they end up being black sheep or end up being outcasted, because their way of correlating their emotions and feelings may very well be a detriment and may not be a good flow. You know what I'm saying? So when things become too cold, you ever been around somebody who's really cold? You know what I'm saying? Think about it. And I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about esoterically, right? This is a person that you are unaware of what's actually going on internally inside them. And whatever that they show you this sense of hardness, this sense of sharpness, and that sense there is for you to not be able to melt what's ever actually going on behind the scenes. So you can see the flow of things. You only can see the harshness of things based upon what it had to do in this life for it to be that cold, for it to be stable, and to separate itself so it don't mix and mingle with other water flows. So for the most part, that's when it comes to the fixed water. Now when we get into the Mars aspect, the planetary ruler. Now this is the feminine aspect of Mars. So we're dealing with Mars: intent, willpower, passion, motivation, and desires. Pardon me. Anger and aggression. So this is the person that take their passions, their internal passions, and it's stuck within their emotions. So this is the person that utilize their emotions that no one knows as a form of fight, as a form of motivation. So a lot of times they anger is the same thing that very well helps them survive in this lifetime. So a lot of times they need a sense of anger, need a sense of trial or tribulation, need a sense of transformation in order to know that they need to get up off their ass and actually do what they're here to do. So for the most part, that internal fight is unaware of any help from the external world. So when other people don't know what's going on internally, right? And then you start to manifest and start to act in all these internal warfares that you're going through externally. You start to participate into energies that have nowhere else to go, but by default, you end up being an outcast, or you end up being a black sheep in certain areas in your life. I don't care how close you are to people. There's always going to be an area in your life that you are outcasted from, where people just choose not to express that to you, or you the black sheep from. You know what I'm saying? Where you look into that area of life and you like, I'd rather not participate in that group of people or place or things because I might feel vulnerable in that area. So you black sheep yourself in that area. So as a Scorpio, that's dealing with Mars. Now Pluto is dealing with transformation and power and control issues. You're constantly in a situation of trying to take power and control, or you're constantly in a situation of you're being taken power and control over something, and you're constantly going through the transformative circumstances of that to learn how to deal with that. And it's dealing with the area of your passions, motivations, and desires, and your emotions. So a lot of times you don't want other people to see you going through emotional chaos, so you rather keep those tears hidden, or you rather keep those internal warfares hidden. So Pluto caused you to go through a bunch of transformations externally, because a lot of times you may need help, but you never presented yourself in a way to allow people to see that's what you actually needed. So for the most part, you get outcasted or black sheep. You're black sheep yourself with the Pluto aspect. Then we get into the 8th house. 8th house is dealing with secrets, deep desires, deep motivations, and the shit that get you up out of and wake you up to motivate you every day that other people don't know why you at this job, or why you doing what you do every day, or why you in this relationship, or why you manipulating. You know what I'm saying? Those kind of energies, those behind the closed doors, in your closet, underneath the bed type energies. You see what I'm saying? So now when you're dealing with the 8th house, you're already keeping things behind closed doors because these things don't even look like they're worth presenting to the external realm in the first place, due to the fact that you're ruled by 8th house energies. So you're dealing with a lot of death of things, aka you feel like these things need to be put death to so you can have something to present. AKA, these are be the same very things that you may need to present so you can relax. But Scorpios don't understand that. So for the most part, just diving into these things will put you into a situation where 8th house by default will lead you into being a black sheep or being outcasted. Now, let's get into Aquariuses. Now, when we talk about Aquariuses right now, when we get into Aquariuses, now what makes you guys the black sheep or end up being outcasted? This takes you into your planetary rulers, and also this takes you into your houses and your modality. Now, let's start off with your modality. So this is fixed air. So this is fixed air. So this is being air, which is thought, communication. When the wind blows, thought forms, ideas that you're. So this is light in a lighter frequency. The light that you haven't manifested and had enough influence added into it enough for it to be seen as a cloud or a light spectrum or a body of water yet, or a sun or a star. So it's like just atom bacterialized at this moment. You know what I'm saying? So when we start to talk about air, that's thought, communication. So when you got Aquarius, this is fixed air, being fixated on its own way of thinking and communicating. So this is like air that's foggy, air that's in one position, air that's not breezy like Gemini, or air that's not pressure where you can see it, but it has a sense of direction. It has a sense of, AKA, a justice or the diplomat energy behind it. You know what I'm saying? Where this thought has a direction for the sake of relatability in some way, shape, or form. So you can see where that air is going. So you can see it being 180, but at the same time, this air is just an air in one spot. It's not moving in a direction, or it's not scattered everywhere like Gemini, where it can have plenty thoughts and be the jack of all trades and things of that nature. Or it's not directed in one area or directed for a cause like Libra. It's an air that's in one spot, aka secluded in its own way of thinking, in its own way of communicating, in its own way of analyzing. So for the most part, now you can start to see how the modalities start to manifest into areas where you can see how they can start to manifest black sheep or being outcasted energies, because the way you think and the way you communicate may be very indifferent to the other two air signs, where Libra may try to communicate to relate and have understanding, where Geminis may communicate to just add ideas and to add a broader spectrum, because it's a mutable sign also, so add a broader spectrum to the space that we're communicating in at the moment, aka add more ideas to whatever one idea that we're looking at the moment. The Aquarius want to have their own thought and idea about both things, have their own idea about relating, and have their own idea about all different forms of ways of how to attack communications and subject matters and things of that nature. Therefore, that leaves no room to relate to another person, or that leaves no room to add your ideas to a scenario, because you're too busy doing this within yourself, aka you probably by yourself somewhere, and it takes you to be a leader, aka others to follow you, so that energy could set the stage so you could be part of an association that match your same frequency vibration. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time to yourself. And you see how and then the difference between the Aquarius and the other black sheeps is a lot of times Aquarius are liked for their black sheepness. A lot of times Aquariuses are liked for their they're liked for their outcastness. And for the most part, and I think one of the outcast members is an Aquarius. I think Big Boy. You know what I'm saying? I think other one was Andre 3000. Andre 3000 is a motherfucking Gemini. But for the most part, when we get into the Aquarius energy of it, for the most part, they're liked for their outcastness. Because you need to understand that air signs in general are the man-woman signs. They're the thought signs. They don't deal with lower animalistic natures. And if they do, because they got other elements. But for the most part, they're always looking at it from a thought form. So for the most part, when we talk about the air, the real men and women, these is about relating thoughts. So the air signs are the relationship signs. So just the way Aquarius relationship is modified, it might be a little unconventional, might be a little weird, quirky, whatever that word is, but for the most part, and a little different, but it's still dealing with relationships. So they still know how to deal with relationships better than the other signs, as far as fire, water, and earth. But at the same time, this is what makes it still. That's why I said each sign still have their outcast. They still have their black sheep. And that's what make it Aquarius, because they have their own thought, because it's fixed air. Now, when we get into the planets, right, you got Saturn, the masculine side of Saturn. So they constantly like to think and communicate about reality, things that's realistic, gaining structure in one's life, placing and receiving boundaries and restrictions and limits. So where the Gemini may not have no boundaries and restrictions and limits within what they like to talk about and communicate with you about, an Aquarius may have limits, what they would talk to you about and what they won't talk to you about. See what I'm saying? Because that's Saturn there. You know, now here's where they agree with a Libras a little bit, because Saturn is exalted, but then anytime a planet is exalted, it shares possibilities of overexhausting itself. So a lot of times a Libra will overexhaust themselves. We're talking too much about boundaries and restrictions and limits. And sometimes you got to tell a Libra, like, okay, I get it. I get what you don't like. I get what you like. You told me 100 times, you know what I'm saying? Where an Aquarius sit there, and where the Gemini may not even know that they're telling you everything they like and don't like. They're just doing it for the sake of conversation. And then the Aquarius may not do that at all. You know what I'm saying? They have boundaries and restrictions and limits, and then won't communicate it either, because they're communicating it within themselves. And they don't want you starting to justify the way that they communicate, aka have you starting to think that you can ask them questions that they don't really want to even talk to you about, based upon how they're mentally thinking about you within their own internal self. So that leads them into that. Now, even when you get into Uranus is dealing with uniqueness and originality, but also change, rebellion, and opposition. Can't have one without the other. For something to be unique and original, or individual, it has to change and rebel and oppose against something that was previously there. So then you add that attribute there. Sometimes their way of communicating may come out as defensive sometimes, or argumentative sometimes, or combative sometimes. And it's not that. It's just sometimes they're utilizing the Uranus energy for the sake of safety for their individuality. You know what I'm saying? So they can express their uniqueness and originality. So they do it with the intellect. And sometimes it may just come off like they're shutting down your intellect, aka changing their rebellious or opposing against your individuality in some way, shape, or form. So you have to keep that in mind also. And they're not meaning to do that, but sometimes by default, it leads them into experiencing scenarios of being a black sheep or being outcast. You know what I'm saying? It's just based upon the spirit that's in that Aquarius body, they can get liked for that. For that revolutionary shit. And then getting into the house. We talk about the 11th house. This is dealing with associations, associates, and how you conduct yourself in a public arena, and dealing with the unknown and the unfamiliar. You know what I'm saying? Which is family, friends, associates. Like I just said, science, astrology, occult, mysticism, technology, but in an intellectual way. Now, for the most part, here's the thing. Then you have that. So for the most part, an Aquarius may always separate themselves from how they feel about things. So a lot of times, when it's time for them to feel a certain way about something, and it's time for them to react in the way that it's supposed to be reacted to, they feel like that's not them, because they're too busy in their head, and they think to act in that way is to act like the way how everybody else is acting, not knowing that you're manifesting these scenarios because it's a cause for a response. And when you're not responding in the way that the world see you, or in the way that you're here to do, for the most part, you're separating yourself from yourself. And as an Aquarius, a lot of times you feel like that's a responsibility. You feel like what people think about you, or what you're supposed to do in other people's lives, or what you're supposed to do in your own life. A lot of times you look at these things as responsibilities themselves, because you're constantly always creating spaceships, aka a mentality, and you jump your spirit into that, and you separate yourself from the reality a lot of times in a logical way. And you're always trying to logically think why you have to do things. But these things isn't cause for you to do them, though. And you waste too much time trying to logically think why you have to do them. And within those experiences, you leave people thinking, where you at? You know what I'm saying? Where you at? Like, damn, we need you right now. This what you created. This what you started. Don't separate yourself now, alien. But that's the 11th house. Now we get into, let's talk about fire. So that'll be Aries. So when we get into Aries right now, this would makes you manifest scenarios of experience being a black sheep or being outcasted. Now let's start off with the modality. This is cardinal fire. So cardinal fire right here. See, each modality with the elements is what's causing these things. You see what I'm saying? And you see how it's different with the only water and air had the same. But you know what I'm saying? When we get into, because they have fixed. But when it comes to fire, cardinal creates that. And when it comes to earth, mutable creates that. But we're going to get into that because Virgo is earth. But air. Now let's talk about fire. Now fire. Now Aries is mutable fire. Cardinal fire. So that's initiating and creating new ways of how to see and feel. See and feel is fire. So when you see and feel, you have a feeling about something that you see internally in the yin realm, you want to express that, so it becomes visions. But no one can see your internal visions unless you have some type of external attribute to express it. So this is why fire signs have to clean towards external things, aka a creative matter, dancing or music or something external that you can burn, because when you burn it, you make it take the shape and form of how you imagine that physicality in this world. You see what I'm saying? So this is why fire signs deal with that. Taking the internal world and bringing it into the yang world. So for the most part, this is the yin yang. You know what I'm saying? Because it's yang, but it's yang in the yin world. So for the most part, in the right brain. So when we start to talk about cardinal fire, this is initiating, creating new ways of how to see and feel about the world that you are in. So for the most part, when you're constantly trying to initiate and create a whole new way of how to see and feel about things, that leaves no room to relate to how other people are seeing and feeling about things. And anytime somebody try to add that idea or add that feeling or add that practicality, aka that air, water, or that earth, to that Aries fire, Aries will look at it like it's like in defense mode or attack. Like you're trying to attack their ability to create a whole new way of seeing and feeling about things. And that's not always the case. You see what I'm saying? So you have to understand that, Aries, that's not always the case. People will see what you're doing and like to add to it or see how it can be modified. But an Aries will look at this like, won't even look at it in that aspect. They look at it like, wait, you're trying to threaten my ability to create a way. Not knowing that Aries have to consider whatever you're creating sometimes could be destructive, sometimes could be unapparent of the surrounding, and sometimes could only benefit oneself. And without looking at these aspects, anytime someone try to give you a different idea or give you a feeling and emotion from a different point of view, Aries will feel personally threatened. You see what I'm saying? So Aries have to understand that it's not someone threatening your ability to, or someone trying to change your way of doing something. It's someone seeing what you're doing from a different aspect. And once you start to understand that, then you can take your leadership role in a better attribute instead of, and it could be positive instead of it being negative. Instead of you jumping into this space and being argumentative and wanting to separate yourself from these people, places, and things that's trying to help you modify what you're creating. Instead of jumping into those destructive energies, you can jump into beneficial energies that help everybody. AKA, you got the ability and energy to create something new, but when other people see it being created, for them to feel safe in it, and for them to be like, I can be a part of it and shit like that too, you can add their ideas, AKA, what you're being modified is not you being blocked in a cage. It's not that, Aries. It's you modifying what you're getting ready to create so it can benefit everybody else too, so they can feel safe within it. So they don't jump on a boat ride and feel like this is about to be the most craziest boat ride I wish I never jumped on ever. Can this person please consider my comfortability on this boat ride also? You get it, Aries? So you have to understand that. But boom, y'all start to see how the modalities start to manifest and how Aries end up becoming a black sheep or being outcasted. Boom, let's get into the Mars. Mars, intent, willpower, passion, motivation, and desires. And things of that nature. So Pluto was here first before it died, and now it's in Scorpio where we see it at now. But where it was first at was Pluto. So before it died, where it was first at was Aries. So before Pluto died as Osiris and gave us all this death and transformation energy that we see where it's at now in existence in 8th house in Scorpio, we understand where it came from. Before something had to die, it had to be born. Birth. So then we get into birth. You know what I'm saying? So this is the aspect of birth right here when it comes to the masculine side of Mars. So when we talk about Aries, right, they're all constantly, their intent, willpower, passion, motivations, and desires, or anger or aggression is always in the aspect of new, unfamiliarity. Being unaware of how to deal with these things, but having all this at your access. So for the most part, you got all these passions, but your passion could be a detriment. You got all this anger and aggression, but you don't know why. So for the most part, it's because your passion is not being met, but you go through a bunch of your experiences in your life having to learn. That's why you get angry. You know what I'm saying? Now, for the most part, as an Aries, right, once you start to initiate and create new ways of how to see and feel about things, it's constantly in your passions, your motivations. And when you're not able to do that, or in a space or around other people, places, and things where that energy can flow fluidly, you end up feeling like you're being attacked, even if nobody is bothering you. You could be at a school being forced to learn something, but if whatever you're being forced to learn has no attributes of creativity into it, or you could initiate and create your own way of seeing and feeling about it, and you have to go towards their system of how the math work, then for the most part, you're going to feel like, fuck this class. You see what I'm saying? That's why you need another fire teacher. But at the same time, see how you get ready to be the black sheep? See how you get ready to be outcasted? You see how you get ready to develop ideas that other people don't agree with because you're the only person that's doing that and everybody else is going towards protocol? See what I'm saying? Now you the lone wolf. Now you're deep in the woods by yourself. And the only time you're going to get any friends is if they was lost in the woods too on their own journey. And y'all just so happily met yourselves based upon y'all spiritual journey. Howling at the moon somewhere. And they're getting into the house. It's the first house. So the first house is dealing with personality, personal issues, and affairs. So your personality, personal issues and affairs, personal insecurities, personal interests, all this is dealing with your personnel. So when it comes to an Aries, expressing their actions or reactions or their personality and things of that nature is always going to come from an individualistic point of view. So for the most part, when they're trying to relate, but when they're relating to you and it doesn't share the same personal interests, you may get hit with a clash, or you may get hit with being ghosted from this Aries. Because the Aries won't be able to have the personnel around you, or their personality in general is based upon individual interests. So if they're not around other people who got the same insecurities, same interests, then this Aries will ghost you, or this Aries will manifest being a black sheep or being outcasted because their personal interest is not in cahoots. Damn, man, this video about to stop. And so let me hurry up and do Virgo. You know what I'm saying? Now Virgo, here's the thing. Mutable Earth. Being mutable and being able to adapt to your own and other people's ways of thinking and being practical. So for the most part, Earth is all about steady. It's all about being sure. It's all about being sure about tomorrow. So what separates you from Taurus and Capricorn is because you're never sure. So you're always trying to be too sure. So for the most part, sometimes you could be too sure, and you don't allow that relaxation energy for the Taurus to be around you, and you don't allow that mentality for Capricorn for them to have their space of control, because you're too busy trying to analyze the space that they already got control over. And sometimes you have to allow mistakes to allow newness. That's that Capricorn energy, because it initiates. It's cardinal. Now Virgo, a lot of times that what separates you from them and then the rest of the world, because now you're trying to be too calculated, and sometimes being too calculated, you end up missing the party. You know what I'm saying? You try to be too on time to the point that you miss the best parts. You know what I'm saying? So for the most part, you got to understand that. And you're right on time, and if you was a little, and then you come early, and then you stressing out about everything, and then you're not relaxing, and you're not relaxing your nerves. Therefore, it puts you into a situation where people may not want to be around you at particular times, because they know that you're getting ready to present something that other people don't want to deal with at the moment, or other people may look at it like it's not, we shouldn't even be dealing with that, because we should be a little free at the moment, because that's not something that's worth worrying about at the moment. So sometimes it's a gift and a curse, but you see how that's getting ready to lead you into being a black sheep or being outcasted, where a person rather not call you